Today we are diving into one of the most epic and just absolutely tragic events in the entire history of Middle-earth, the Nirnath Arnuidiad, which translates to the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. I mean, what a name, right? It's this incredible story of hope, of this unprecedented unity that just comes crashing down into a catastrophic failure. And you know, to really get this battle, we have to rewind a bit, way before any swords were even drawn. When the Noldoran elves decided to leave the Blessed Realm against the will of the Valar, they were hit with this super grim warning, the prophecy of the North. It basically foretold that their entire journey would just be filled with sorrow. And the Battle of Unnumbered Tears? Well, you could say it was the most terrible fulfillment of that prophecy. So, to understand the incredible hope that sparked this whole thing, you first have to feel the absolute despair that came right before it. The Free Peoples were just reeling from this devastating war, the Dagor Bragollach. It had completely shattered their defenses and kicked off this grim era they called the Long Defeat. I mean, you really can't overstate how desperate things were. Their High King, Fingolfin, had fallen in this legendary duel against Morgoth himself. This left the elves without a unified leader, and all their kingdoms were cut off from each other. Meanwhile, Morgoth's armies, we're talking orcs, balrogs, and who knows what else, were just constantly on the attack. The shadow of his fortress Angband was hanging over everything. To put it simply, the elves and their allies were losing, badly. And this is what was on the line. Beleriand was a land of just breathtaking beauty. You had hidden kingdoms like Gondolin, ancient forests, soaring mountains, and every single bit of it was in danger of being swallowed by Morgoth's darkness. So this wasn't just a war for land. It was, in a way, a war for the very soul of the world. But you know how it goes. Even in the darkest of times, hope has a way of showing up. Facing total annihilation if they just stayed divided, the Free Peoples decided to do something that had never been done before. They actually put aside all their old grudges and rivalries to create one last massive alliance. And the goal? To march right up to Angband and end Morgoth's reign of terror once and for all. And the guy who pulled all this together was Mathros, the eldest son of Feanor. Yeah, that Feanor. Despite the terrible oath his family had sworn, which caused so much trouble, Mathros managed to unite this huge coalition. And for just a brief, shining moment, it really seemed like they might actually defy that old prophecy. And just look at the scale of this thing. You've got the main armies of the Noldor elves, you've got the Sindar elves, the great houses of men, and even the super tough dwarves from the Blue Mountains. And, this is key, you had these new allies, men who had just shown up from the east. This was everybody. They were all in. So the stage was set. The combined armies of the west marched towards Angband, full of this renewed hope. But the battle's name in Elvish is Nirnath Arnuidiad. And Arnuidiad doesn't mean victory or glory, it means unnumbered tears. At first, things were going great. The armies of the Union were pushing Morgoth's forces back, and it looked like victory was actually in reach. But Morgoth was a master of deceit, and well, he had a trump card. At the most critical moment of the fight, hope didn't just fade away, it was betrayed. Yeah, that betrayal came from those newcomers, the Easterlings. Turns out their leader, a guy named Uldor, had secretly been working with Morgoth the whole time. Just as the main elven army was pushing forward, Uldor and his men turned on their allies, attacking them from behind. They were caught in a pincer, the Union's lines just collapsed, and the battle turned into an absolute slaughter. It was a total disaster, a catastrophe. But even in the middle of all that treachery and death, there were acts of heroism so incredible they would be remembered for ages. As the Allied armies broke and started to flee, one group refused to run. The men of the House of Hador, led by the brothers Hurin and Huor, basically formed a living wall of spears and shields to cover the retreat of the Elven king Turgon. And this last stand wasn't just some futile, glorious gesture. It was a strategic sacrifice. By holding their ground down to the very last man, Hurin, Huor, and their people bought precious time. Time for Turgon and the survivors from the hidden city of Gondolin to get away. They literally saved the last great hope of the elves from being wiped out on that terrible day. But while Gondolin was safe for a little while longer, the rest of Beleriand was completely lost. The aftermath of the Battle of Unnumbered Tears was, well, it was apocalyptic. It was such a complete victory for Morgoth that it literally reshaped the world. The defeat was total. Fingon, the High King, was killed and his army was wiped out. The treacherous Easterlings got their reward from Morgoth. He basically locked them in the lands of Hithlum and ordered them to torment the women and children left behind. The survivors of the House of Hador and the elves there were enslaved in Morgoth's mines. The entire northern front just collapsed. Morgoth's victory was absolute. Orcs and his other vile creatures could now just roam freely all across the north. The beautiful lands of Valeriand were scarred by fire and war, and this great darkness fell over everything. The age of open war was over. The age of just trying to survive had begun. The finality of it all was just crushing. The great union of Mandros, which had been this incredible symbol of hope, was shattered. Trust between elves and men was broken by the betrayal, and this deep despair just settled over all the survivors as they scattered into the wilderness. The war was, for all intents and purposes, lost.